The terrifying truth about prehistoric humanity, evidence so ancient it shocks archaeologists and defies modern science. Imagine walking across an ancient desert, and beneath your feet, buried under layers of forgotten time, lies the fossilized footprint of something not quite human, but not animal either. Archaeologists call it impossible, geologists say it shouldn't exist. And yet, it's there. What if the truth about our prehistoric ancestors isn't what we were taught? What if humanity's story began long before modern science dares to admit, a story of ancient intelligence, cataclysms, and civilizations erased from history? Tonight, we travel millions of years back, before the first empires, before recorded history, to uncover the terrifying truth about prehistoric humanity. Prepare yourself. What you're about to hear challenges everything we think we know about the dawn of humankind. If you love exploring the hidden corners of ancient history where mystery meets truth, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who still believes there's more to history than we've been told. Let us uncover the forgotten world together. Footprints before time. Soft ambient tone, like a quiet wind across an ancient desert. Narrator calm, curious. Have you ever wondered what truly came before us? Not just the cavemen or the mammoths or the dinosaurs, but before all that, before the story we think we know ever began. Because every so often, somewhere in the world, someone uncovers something that shouldn't exist. A footprint, fossilized in rock older than humanity itself. A carving, deep inside a cave, that shows stars aligned thousands of years before we were supposed to understand astronomy. It makes you pause, doesn't it? If time is a river, how many forgotten civilizations have already flowed past, leaving only the faintest ripples for us to find? Section E. The imprint in stone. The story begins in Glen Rose, Texas, 1908. A farmer, chasing after his cows along the Paluxy River, stumbles upon strange impressions in the limestone bed. At first glance, they look like dinosaur tracks, not surprising, since the area is rich in prehistoric fossils, but as he looks closer, his heart skips a beat. They aren't clawed, they aren't three-toed, they ray footprints, human-like, 5 toes, distinct arch. Except here's the impossible part. The rock layer they ray in is estimated to be over by million years old. That's tens of millions of years before modern humans were ever thought to exist. When scientists came to investigate, they shook their heads. It must be erosion, coincidence, an illusion. But locals couldn't shake the feeling that these footprints were a message, a mark left behind by something ancient, something that once walked where we now stand. Narrator quietly, how can a human footprint appear in the same rock layer as a dinosaur track? Could it be a hoax, or something far older than we can imagine? Section R. The mystery of the footprint that shouldn't exist. Fast forward to the 1960s, a team of geologists revisits the Paluxy riverbed. They use modern equipment, chemical analysis, and even early forms of carbon dating. The results? Inconclusive. Some of the tracks could be human-like, others might be misinterpreted dinosaur impressions. But that wasn't the only discovery. Around the world, in Tanzania, Ledali, South Africa, and Mexico, similar anomalies began appearing. In Ledali, Mary Leakey unearthed footprints 3.6 million years old, clearly made by hominins, but with arches and strides remarkably modern. Then came the Zapata tracks in New Mexico, prints in sandstone supposedly 290 million years old. Impossible, the experts said, and yet, there they were. Narrator, what if these aren't just accidents of nature? What if they ray echoes, fossils of forgotten species, or civilizations wiped clean by time? Section Science. Fossils, myths, and the human imagination. Throughout human history, strange fossils have always stirred our imagination. Ancient Greeks believed they were bones of the gods, Chinese scholars called them dragon bones. And in India, Vedic texts spoke of beings called the Apinihara, ancient predecessors of humankind, said to have lived in harmony with the earth long before the first man. Were these stories merely myths, or distant memories of real prehistoric beings? In the Rig Veda, there is mention of beings of the first light, born before the age of men, who walked the earth when the stars were still being named. To modern ears, it sounds poetic, but to those who study ancient cosmology, it feels strangely precise. Narrator softly, could these Vedic verses be fragments of memory, describing a world lost millions of years ago? Section 4. When science meets the unexplainable, scientists are cautious by nature, and rightly so. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, but history is filled with moments where science had to pause and say, wait, maybe we were wrong. For example, the coelacanth, a fish thought extinct for 65 million years, was found alive in 1938. The Göbekli Tepe site in Turkey, discovered in the 1990s, dates back 1,200 years older than any known temple, built by people who shouldn't have had the tools to do it. If such surprises can rewrite history once, why not again? Perhaps the same is true for these footprints. Perhaps what we've found is not just stone, but the fingerprint of an older humanity, one that lived, evolved, and vanished long before ours began. Narrator leaning in, and if that is true, who were they? What happened to them? And could we be next in that same repeating cycle? Section Would a planet with amnesia. The late author Graham Hancock once said, "We are a species with amnesia." That line resonates deeply when we look at evidence like this, from the submerged ruins of Yonaguni in Japan to the mysterious metallic spheres of Klerksdorp, South Africa. Ancient anomalies whisper one truth: we don't know our own past. Geological cycles, magnetic reversals, ice ages, and asteroid impacts all have wiped the Earth clean again and again. Each time, knowledge resets, and what remains are fragments, tools without hands, symbols without meaning, footprints without names. Narrator reflective. Maybe that's why ancient myths from every culture speak of a time before the flood, or the first dawn. They weren't stories, they were memories. Section Low. The debate that never ends. Modern archaeologists often dismiss such anomalies as misinterpretations. After all, extraordinary age claims require rigorous dating and peer review. But even among professionals, quiet conversations persist. Could certain rock formations, once thought too old for human activity, actually hold evidence of proto-humans, a species we've never identified? Could evolution be less linear than we imagine? In South Africa, miners found metallic spheres with parallel grooves embedded in billion-year-old pyrophyllite. Are they natural formations? Most likely, but to this day, no one can fully explain how such symmetry formed so deep in time. So what's left is a puzzle, scattered clues of a history we barely understand. Section Chia. The footprints and the forgotten ones. When you stand by the Paluxy River today, you can still see those faint impressions, half erased by time, half preserved by chance. Tourists walk by them, unaware that under their shoes lies one of the greatest mysteries ever discovered. Some locals say they feel a strange calm there, as if the land remembers. Others claim the prints move after heavy rain, not literally, but as the riverbed shifts, new shapes emerge, as though the earth is rewriting its own memory. It's a haunting image, time rearranging its story, piece by piece. Narrator's soft tone. Maybe these footprints are not proof of anything definitive, but maybe they are reminders that history isn't a straight line, it's a circle. And every so often, the past leaves behind a footprint just deep enough for us to see, before it fades again into stone. Section Ba. Closing reflection. Chapter E. So what do we do with this mystery? Do we label it anomaly and move on? Or do we truly listen to what the stones are trying to tell us? Perhaps these ancient footprints are less about what walked there, and more about why we forgot it ever did. Because the earth doesn't lie, but it does hide, and for every answer we uncover, there are 1,000 questions buried beneath. In the next chapter, we follow those questions deep beneath the oceans, to ruins and monuments that should not exist, the age of lost civilizations. Narrator closing. If this journey through time moved something inside you, remember to like, share, and subscribe, not for the algorithm, but to keep this search for truth alive, because every click is another light in the darkness of forgotten history. The age of lost civilizations. Slow fade in, ocean waves rolling over stone ruins beneath the sea. Narrator soft, reflective. Beneath the waves, where sunlight fades into silence, lie the bones of forgotten worlds, cities swallowed by time, monuments that predate history itself. If the footprints of chapter Yilan whispered a forgotten beginning, these ruins shout a forgotten age, an age of builders, dreamers, and civilizations so ancient that even myth struggles to remember their names. Some call them legends, others call them evidence. Either way, what we find beneath the earth and sea might just rewrite what we think it means to be human. Section E. The sunken city beneath the waves. The year was 1986, off the coast of Yonaguni, Japan. A local diver named Kihachiro Aratake was exploring near the island's southern shore when his flashlight swept across something strange, sharp, geometric edges where only coral and sand should be. He swam closer, terraces, steps, platforms, massive walls carved with impossible precision. What he had discovered would later be called the Yonaguni Monument, a sprawling structure 15 meters below the surface, with straight lines, 90-degree angles, and steps that spiral like a temple. At first, experts dismissed it as a natural rock formation, coastal erosion, they said, but others, like marine geologist Masaaki Kimura, disagreed. He saw patterns, symmetry, tool marks. And as he studied further, he found carvings, symbols eerily similar to ancient Japanese scripts, and what appeared to be a massive stone road leading into the deep. Narrator curious, how could something like this be natural? And if it wasn't he, who built it and when? Radiocarbon dating of coral attached to the stones suggested the site had been submerged around years ago, at the end of the last ice age. That's 7,000 years before the first Egyptian pyramid. If true, Yonaguni would be the oldest man-made structure ever discovered, built by a civilization lost long before recorded history began. Narrator soft, almost whispering, so, what if this was the first city, not Sumer, not Egypt, but something far older, erased by rising seas when the glaciers melted? Section are the hidden architects of the past. Around the same time, similar underwater anomalies appeared across the globe. Off the coast of India, near Dwarka, divers found stone pillars and walls now submerged under the Arabian Sea. In the Bahamas, near Bimini, divers found the so-called Bimini Road, large rectangular limestone blocks forming a near-perfect straight path under the ocean. In Cuba, sonar scans revealed vast geometric structures nearly 7 meters deep, too old, too deep, too advanced. Each discovery raised the same uncomfortable question: how could advanced architecture exist before the dawn of civilization? Mainstream archaeology insists human civilization began around 5,000 to 6,000 years ago, with the rise of Sumer and Egypt. But these underwater ruins suggest organized societies with mathematics, engineering, and possibly writing existed long before that. Narrator: could they have been the remnants of a civilization wiped out by the last great flood, as the same one described in myths across every continent? Section Sign myths that remember. Every culture remembers a flood. The Epic of Gilgamesh, written in ancient Mesopotamia, describes the gods drowning the world. The Bible's Genesis tells of Noah and the ark. The Hindu Puranas speak of Manu, who was warned by the god Vishnu of a deluge that would destroy all life. The Maya Popova tells of a flood sent by the gods to erase a failed creation of humans made of wood. Different lands, different languages, yet the same story, a cataclysm that wiped the earth clean. Narrator softly: what if these aren't myths, but memories? Ancient civilizations trying to preserve what little they remembered from a disaster 12,000 years ago. Modern science does confirm something remarkable. Around 1080 BC, Earth entered a sudden period of global warming known as the Younger Dryas. Melting ice sheets caused catastrophic floods that raised sea levels by nearly 400 feet, enough to drown entire coastal civilizations. If advanced societies existed along those coastlines, their ruins would now be deep beneath the ocean, lost but not gone. Section C. The builders before us. In Egypt, the Sphinx has long been a symbol of mystery, but geological studies by Dr. Robert Schock in the 1990s found deep water erosion marks suggesting the statue had been exposed to heavy rainfall thousands of years before the Sahara became desert. that would place its creation around Yuan BC at the same time as the supposed flood events across the ocean. In Turkey, the excavation of Göbekli Tepe added more fuel to the mystery. A temple complex of massive stone pillars carved with animals and cosmic symbols dating to Yaoyaolu years ago, no agriculture, no cities, no known writing, yet perfect engineering and astronomical alignment. Who were these builders? And how did they know how to shape and lift stones weighing more than 15 tons? Narrator questioning tone. Is it possible that Göbekli Tepe, the Sphinx, and Yonaguni all belong to the same forgotten lineage, a prehistoric world civilization erased by time? Some researchers refer to it as the Atlantis hypothesis, popularized by Plato in Sanloling, BC, but maybe Atlantis wasn't one place, maybe it was a memory, a symbol of a world that rose before ours and fell beneath the sea. Section Wu, Evidence in Stone. Stone lasts longer than memory. When we examine ancient ruins, from Pumapunku in Bolivia to Nabta Playa in Egypt, we see engineering precision still unmatched today. Interlocking joints, laser straight cuts, and stones so massive they defy explanation with Bronze Age tools. Archaeologists propose chisel and hammer, but experimental archaeology often fails to reproduce these same cuts without advanced instruments. At Pumapunku, stones appear to have been shaped as if molded, their angles exact to fractions of a millimeter. At Tiwanaku, the orientation of temples aligns perfectly with celestial events. In deep below Lake Titicaca, divers have found ruins suggesting an earlier, submerged phase of the city, hinting again at a flood event. Narrator it's as if they were building not for their time, but for eternity, leaving behind messages in stone, knowing we would one day forget and rediscover. Section Lu, Ancient Knowledge That Shouldn't Exist. Even more fascinating are the parallels in ancient texts. The Vedas speak of advanced knowledge, architecture, astronomy, and technology. In the Mahabharata, there are descriptions of flying vimanas, machines powered by light and sound. In Sumerian tablets, the gods known as the Anunnaki teach humans mathematics, agriculture, and writing, seemingly overnight. In Egypt, the first pharaohs claim descent from the followers of Horus, divine beings who ruled before men. What if these are not tales of gods, but of survivors or remnants of an earlier civilization passing their knowledge forward to restart humanity? Narrator, every great civilization begins with a teacher, but who taught the first ones? Section Chi, the Apinihara legacy in the ancient Vedic tradition. There is a lesser-known story, the tale of the Apinihara, the Shining Ones, beings who lived in the first age of the earth, the Satya Yuga, long before humans were born. They were said to walk with the rhythm of the stars and speak the language of the wind. They built temples that reached the clouds and cities that sang. When the great flood came, it is said the Apinihara retreated beneath the mountains and the sea, waiting for the world to heal. Some believe their knowledge survived in fragments, the geometry of the pyramids, the design of mandalas, the precise astronomical calendars of the Maya. Could the ruins we find today, Göbekli Tepe, Yonaguni, Bimini, Dwarka, be the remains of this forgotten age? Narrator whisper, and if so, did they ever truly disappear? Or are we their descendants, walking again in circles through time? Section Ba, Modern Discoveries and Silent Questions. In recent decades, advanced sonar mapping has revealed hundreds of possible submerged structures across the planet, from the coast of India, Japan, Cuba, to the Mediterranean. Many remain unexplored, buried under centuries of silt and coral. Why the silence? Some say funding. Others whisper it's because such discoveries challenge the established timeline too deeply, and yet, piece by piece, the puzzle grows clearer. Artifacts recovered from these sites show signs of craftsmanship, straight edges, right angles, and material consistency. Even skeptics admit natural formations rarely produce such geometry on a grand scale. Narrator steady, thoughtful. Maybe the truth isn't that civilization began once, but many times, each time rising, building, falling, and leaving faint echoes in our myths. Section 9. The ocean keeps secrets. Picture it. A temple now home to coral and fish, columns draped in seaweed, steps that lead nowhere, arches swallowed by silence. The ocean doesn't destroy, it preserves, it hides. And maybe, one day, when we've learned enough humility to listen, it will return what it has kept for us. Narrator reflective, perhaps that is the real meaning of these lost civilizations, not proof of aliens or fantasy empires, but a warning that every rise is followed by a fall, and that memory, if ignored, sinks just as fast as stone. Section 10. The whisper beneath the waves. As we close this chapter, imagine diving deep into that blue silence. Your flashlight touches a wall that hasn't seen sunlight in 12,000 years, symbols carved by hands that no longer exist, a story etched in stone, waiting for someone to remember. History isn't lost, it's waiting to be rediscovered. And when we do, perhaps we'll realize that we were not the first humans to stand at the edge of the future, nor will we be the last. Narrator closing softly. In the next chapter, we turn to those ancient legends and fossil clues to the tales of the Apinihara themselves, the beings said to guide early humanity before history began. Who were they? And could they hold the key to our own forgotten origins? Stay with me, the story is only beginning. Soft instrumental fade, waves echoing in the background, Apinihara and the forgotten beings. Opening scene, a flickering flame over ancient carvings, the low hum of wind through an empty stone hall. Narrator soft, resonant. Before the first pyramids, before summer in Egypt, before even the earliest fires lit in caves, there are stories of them, beings who walked the earth when the stars were still young, the Apinihara. Their name drifts through fragments of Vedic memory, half myth, half history. They were called those who came before light, the luminous ones, and the keepers of the first dawn. To modern ears, it sounds poetic, but what if it as memory? What if the Apinihara were real, a species, a people, a civilization that predates our own by tens or even hundreds of thousands of years? Section E. Legends older than memory. In the Rigveda, one of humanity's oldest surviving texts, there's a cryptic line. Before the sons of Manu, before men and gods, the Shining One set the rhythm of the stars. To most scholars, it's symbolic, but across cultures, from ancient India to pre-dynastic Egypt to the Andes, we find echoes of the same story. Beings of light, teachers, builders, they emerge after cataclysm, guide humankind, and then vanish. The Dogon people of West Africa speak of the Namo, amphibious beings who descended from the sky and taught them about astronomy, agriculture, and mathematics. In Sumerian tablets, the Anunnaki arrived from the heavens to establish order and teach writing. In the Popolvuh, the Maya describe the makers who shaped humanity from the dust before disappearing into the mountains. Different names, same pattern. Narrator curious tone. Were these myths mere imagination or fragmented memories of an ancient people, the Apinihara, who once walked beside early humans? Section Art fossils, fire, and forgotten species. Archaeology is beginning to uncover things that blur the line between myth and memory. In South Africa, fossils of Homo naledi, small-brained, tool-using beings, were discovered deep in a cave system known as the Rising Star. What shocked researchers wasn't just their age, but the evidence that they buried their dead, a behavior once believed unique to modern humans. In Denisova Cave, Siberia, fragments of bone and teeth revealed another mysterious species, the Denisovans. They interbred with both Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, leaving genetic traces in modern humans across Asia and Oceania. They vanished without explanation, and yet, in the myths of Tibet, there are stories of tall, radiant beings who taught early tribes the art of metallurgy and architecture before retreating into the mountains. Coincidence, or fossil memory turned into myth? Narrator reflective, it makes you wonder how many branches of humanity rose and fell before us, leaving only whispers in our DNA and symbols in stone. Section Side. The star teachers. In the Vedic cosmology, time moves in vast cycles, yugas, millions of years spanning birth, growth, decay, and destruction. The Satya Yuga, the first age, was said to be the era of truth, when the Apinihara lived among creation. They weren't gods, but enlightened beings, scientists and astronomers of their time, watching the heavens, mapping stars, understanding forces we barely grasp today. At ancient sites like Nabta Playa in Egypt, Stonehenge in Britain, and Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, massive stone circles aligned with constellations Orion, Sirius, the Pleiades. But what makes it strange is that these sites date back to periods when humans supposedly lacked the tools or knowledge to calculate such alignments. So where did the knowledge come from? Narrator leaning in. Could it be, as some researchers suggest, that early humans inherited this wisdom from a forgotten civilization? Or were they helped by beings whose memory became the Apinihara? Section 2. When myth speaks in code, historians often forget that myths are coded history. Poets and sages didn't always record events literally, they wrapped truth in metaphor, so that knowledge could survive through ages of darkness. Take the Mahabharata, a tale of divine wars and heavenly weapons. It describes flashes brighter than 1,000 suns, smoke that rose like mushrooms, and people who perished instantly. To modern readers, it sounds like a poetic exaggeration, but physicists who analyzed the text found chilling parallels to the effects of nuclear explosions. The Vedas also describe flying machines, the Vimanas, powered by mercury vortex engines. Myth? Maybe. But Indian scientists at the Banaras Hindu University have documented ancient Sanskrit manuscripts detailing propulsion systems and alloys with magnetic properties unknown to the ancients, at least officially. If these writings originated from the time of the Apinihara, they might not be fiction at all but relics of an age we forgot how to build. Narrator's soft talk. So, were the Apinihara gods, or were they just us before the reset? Section. Were the Great Divide. Archaeologists studying Paleolithic and Neolithic transitions often describe a sudden leap, a mysterious jump in intelligence, culture, and technology around UI BC. We went from cave paintings to temples almost overnight. Where did that spark come from? Geneticists can trace a bottleneck in our DNA roughly 2 years ago, perhaps from a massive volcanic eruption, like Mount Toba, that nearly wiped out humanity. But something happened after that. Our ancestors began building, carving, and measuring the sky. It's almost as if knowledge reappeared, restored, not discovered. Could the Apinihara have survived the cataclysm and retaught the remnants of humanity? Is that why ancient texts speak of the return of the Shining Ones? Narrator thoughtful. If knowledge is light, maybe the Apinihara were the keepers of the first flame, and when the darkness came, they shared it again. Section. New echoes in stone and gene. Let us step back from myth for a moment. Modern research reveals something fascinating. Certain human genes, particularly those linked to immune response and high-altitude adaptation, come from extinct species like the Denisovans. But a few genes don't match any known lineage. They appear ancient, but untraceable. Scientists call them ghost alleles, unexplained DNA signatures that don't fit the known evolutionary tree. Now, combine that with oral traditions of beings who interbred with early humans and vanished into the earth. Science gives us fragments. Myth gives us the story. Together, they form a haunting picture. Perhaps these ghost alleles are the biological footprints of the Apinihara. Narrator quietly. Could we be carrying their memory not just in our myths, but in our blood? Section 2. The temples that sing. Across India, Cambodia, and Central America, ancient temples share an eerie similarity. Acoustics. When sound is made at certain frequencies, chambers resonate in harmony. At Angkor Wat, Ellora Caves, and in Peru, engineers found that these structures amplify sound waves that can alter human brain states. Were they designed for ritual or communication? Ancient Sanskrit hymns describe singing stones that connected temple to sky. Could the Apinihara have understood the relationship between vibration, energy, and consciousness, something we're only beginning to explore through quantum physics and sound therapy today? Narrator odd. Maybe their temples weren't just places of worship, but instruments, a language of resonance, a dialogue between earth and stars. Section Ba. The last message of the Apinihara. As with all ancient beings, the Apinihara's story ends or maybe begins again in silence. Vedic texts say that when the earth began to tremble and oceans rose, they entered the deep sanctuaries and sealed the gates with song. That line haunted scholars for centuries. In 2019, explorers in the Himalayas uncovered vast underground tunnels carved with precision, their age unknown. One passage, sealed by rockfall, contained symbols matching early Sanskrit forms describing a people who descended when the stars fell, and at Gobekli Tepe, the central pillars of the T-stones bear carvings of a comet striking the Earth, around 10900 BC. Coincidentally, that's the same date modern science assigns to the Younger Dryas impact event, a catastrophe that triggered massive floods. Could these have been the final days of the Apinihara civilization? Did they predict it? Did they try to warn us? Narrator somber. And if so, what happens when the cycle turns again? When the ice melts, the poles shift, and history resets, will our cities to become myths beneath the sea? Section 2. The memory that never dies. Maybe that's why every ancient culture tells us, remember, because forgetting is the first extinction. The Apinihara, whether myth or truth, embody a lesson that wisdom is fragile, and arrogance is deadly. Each civilization that believes itself the first soon becomes another story, another ruin, another mystery waiting for someone to rediscover. Look at our own world, satellites orbiting like stars, data stored in fragile machines. If we vanish tomorrow, how long before it all erodes? 10,000 years? 50? Would the next species find our skyscrapers and ask, who built these? Would they call us gods? Narrator soft. Perhaps we are the Apinihara of tomorrow. Section 10. Closing reflection. Chapter 9. So who were the Apinihara? Maybe ancient teachers, maybe an earlier humanity, maybe a myth woven to explain a truth too vast for one age to remember. But every footprint, every fossil, every fragment of lost wisdom points to one undeniable fact: the story of humanity did not begin with us, it began with them, those who walked before, those who remembered the stars, those who built for eternity. Narrator closing. In the next chapter, we descend into the great silence to explore the cataclysms that ended their world. Volcanoes, floods, fire from the sky, and the long night that nearly erased all memory of life. This is the story of the great extinction and the hidden memory. Soft ancient chanting fades, screen darkens, the great extinction and the hidden memory. Opening scene, a low rumble, then the sound of wind across an empty desert. The camera pans over submerged ruins, shattered statues, and blackened stone. Narrator calm but heavy. Before there was recorded time, before any empire rose, the earth itself remembered destruction. Every continent carries its scars, flood lines carved into mountains, forests buried in ash, bones turned to stone. And every culture, from the Vedas to the Norse sagas, whispers the same fear. Once before, the world ended. Section E. When the sky fell around 1,200 years ago, something unimaginable happened. Across North America, Europe, and Asia, mammoths and giant sloths vanished, forests burned, temperatures plunged. Scientists call it the Younger Dryas event, a sudden return to Ice Age cold. The leading theory: a massive comet impact, fragments striking the ice sheets of Canada and Greenland. Overnight, oceans boiled, clouds of dust dimmed the sun, and the air filled with fire. Geologists have found layers of nanodiamonds and iridium, materials only formed in cosmic impacts, scattered across Wushi sites on Earth, exactly at the layer where the great beasts in early human cultures disappeared. Narrator: to the people who survived, it must have looked like the heavens themselves were collapsing. In the ancient Indian Puranas, there is a line that reads, when the stars fell like sparks, and the sky was torn asunder, the ocean rose to swallow the lands. And on the other side of the world, the Maya Chilumbalam describes a rain of fire and stone that ended the first sun. Different continents, same memory. Section R. The flood that erased the map. When the ice sheets melted, sea levels rose more than 120 meters, enough to drown entire coastlines. Over 10 million square kilometers of habitable land vanished. Imagine ancient cities, trade routes, temples, knowledge all swallowed by the sea. modern sonar mapping reveals vast structures beneath the waves. Off the coast of India, near Dwarka, walls and roads lie buried under sashimi eaters of water. Near Japan's Yonaguni Island, a massive terraced complex, possibly man-made, sits silently beneath the ocean. Off Cuba's western coast, deep-sea scans show symmetrical formations resembling city blocks at depths humans couldn't have reached until modern times. Could these be the cities of the Forgotten Age, the ones myths call Atlantis, Kumarikandam, Rama's Bridge, or Lemuria? To scientists, these are geological anomalies. To storytellers, they ray memory made stone. Section C: Survivors of the first night after the cataclysm. Something remarkable happened. Humanity didn't vanish, it remembered. But memory doesn't always survive as science. It survives as story. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the flood hero Utnapishtim builds a ship to preserve life. In the book of Genesis, it becomes Noah. In India, Manu is warned by a shining being in the form of a fish to build an ark. In Aztec myth, Coxcox and Xochiquetzal survive a flood and repopulate the earth. Hundreds of flood myths, all describing the same pattern: a warning from the heavens, a great destruction, a remnant saved. Narrator reflective: is it faith, or is it record-keeping, the last logbook of a dying world? Section C: The knowledge carriers after the flood. Scattered survivors rebuilt. But how did they suddenly master agriculture, architecture, astronomy? Archaeology shows that within 1,000 years of the Younger Dryas, humanity went from nomadic tribes to building cities like Jericho and temples like Göbekli Tepe, the oldest known monument complex on Earth. Its builders carved 90-ton pillars and aligned them to the constellations. They knew geometry, engineering, and star mapping, yet had no known ancestors with those skills. Where did that knowledge come from? Some call them the Watchers, others the Shining Ones. Maybe they were the remnants of the Apinihara, those who survived the fall and carried fragments of forgotten wisdom into a new dawn. Section with the silent vaults beneath. In the 1970s, explorers in Cappadocia, Turkey, uncovered vast underground cities, tunnels deep enough to hide around people, ventilation shafts, wells, storage, even stables carved with perfect planning. Some date them to 8000 BC or older. Who built them? And why would anyone hide underground, unless the surface was deadly? In the Himalayas, Tibetan texts describe vaults beneath the world where sages preserved scrolls and artifacts from the time before the flood. In Egypt, the Book of Thoth speaks of a hall of records sealed beneath the Sphinx, said to contain all memory of the first time, myth, or the hidden archives of the world before. Section Law of Fire, Ice, and Forgetting. Every great reset follows the same pattern: fire, flood, famine, forgetting. Civilizations collapse not just when they lose land, but when they lose memory. Once the oral storytellers died, once the symbols faded, the survivors had to start again. Stone became the new parchment. That is why the oldest monuments are always built to last: pyramids, dolmens, ziggurats. They ray not just tombs, they ray time capsules. At Göbekli Tepe, archaeologists found that after centuries of use, the builders deliberately buried it in sand as if to protect it from something they knew was coming. Section Chi: The hidden memory in DNA. Modern genetics tells a quiet truth. Our species nearly went extinct more than once. Around 2,000 years ago, the Toba supereruption reduced humanity to a few thousand survivors. The genetic bottleneck is still visible today. But our DNA also holds memories in immune responses, instincts, even dreams. Some researchers propose that collective trauma can echo across generations, shaping myths of fear, flood, and fire. Narrator gentle: maybe the Great Extinction wasn't just an event. Maybe it was a wound in the collective soul of humanity, a wound we retell so we never forget. Section Ba: Archaeologists vs memory keepers. Modern science searches for proof, layers, dates, artifacts, but indigenous elders, monks, and storytellers have carried the truth in verse for millennia. In South America, the Kogi tribe warns of the younger brother, humanity that forgets and destroys. In Australia, Aboriginal Dreamtime speaks of the sea that rose and the sky that broke. These aren't coincidences. They ray the human record system before writing. We dig for stones while they preserve the story. Section The message beneath the waves. As technology improves, oceanographers discover more submerged ruins every year. Beneath the Black Sea, divers found entire Neolithic settlements perfectly preserved under mud. Near India's Gulf of Combat, sonar images showed geometric patterns, avenues, walls, possible temples dated at nearly 9500 BC. If confirmed, that's older than any known civilization, proof that something advanced existed before the flood. Narrator in awe, if the sea could speak, what forgotten cities would it name? Section The long sleep of history. Maybe this is why ancient texts repeat the same cycle. Creation, growth, corruption, destruction, rebirth. It's not prophecy, it's memory, and maybe a warning. Because the signs repeat: rising seas, melting ice, strange fires in the sky. We ray standing at the edge of another reset, just as they once did. Narrator quietly, history doesn't end, it sleeps, waiting for those who remember to awaken it again. Closing reflection, the hidden memory. So, what truly caused the great extinction? A comet, a flood, the wrath of gods? Maybe all of them, maybe none. What matters is what humanity chose to remember, and what it chose to forget. The world before us may have been erased by water and flame, but not completely. Every myth, every monument, every unanswered question is a whisper from that time, urging us to listen, because if we forget their story, we may repeat their ending. Narrator. Final line, fading. In the next chapter, we search the sands for proof of lost cities, forbidden maps, and the mysterious builders who tried to rebuild the world after the flood. This is chapter The Lost Architects and the Forbidden Maps. Soft echo of thunder, fade to black. Would you like me to continue and write chapter The Lost Architects and the Forbidden Maps, keeping the same style and depth? Chapter you said. Chapter Chatgap said. Excellent, let us bring this ancient journey to its climax. Cinematic, mysterious, deeply human, and grounded in both history and wonder. Here is the final part of your 2-word documentary. The Lost Architects and the Forbidden Maps. Opening, waves crash against stone. The camera drifts over weathered ruins beneath the sea. Faint choral tones echo through water and wind. Narrator calm, reverent. Long after the Great Flood, when the oceans calmed and the new sun rose, survivors began to rebuild, but something was different. They carried with them fragments, memories of geometry, stars, and sacred measure, a knowledge that did not belong to a world of hunters and tribes. Who were these people who rose from the ashes of extinction? And how did they know things that science would only rediscover thousands of years later? Section The Stone Whisperers. The ruins of Göbekli Tepe were just the beginning. Across the planet, ancient hands began shaping stone in ways too deliberate to be coincidence. In Egypt, the first pyramids appeared with precision no Bronze Age tools should have achieved. In Peru, walls fit together so tightly that not even a blade of grass can slip between them. And on Easter Island, the Moai statues stare inland, as if watching over something long forgotten. What if these monuments were not separate achievements, but echoes of a shared memory, a design language inherited from the same vanished source? Narrator quietly. It's as if someone whispered the blueprints of eternity into many cultures at once. Section The Impossible Maps. Centuries later, explorers began to notice something strange. Old charts, preserved in monasteries and libraries, showed coastlines and continents that should not have been known. The Piri-Reis map of Yiwu-Yisan depicts Antarctica without ice. The Orontes-Phineas map from Yiwu-Sai outlines subglacial rivers confirmed only by modern satellite radar, and the Bosch map of the Shibath century shows mountain ranges beneath the southern pole, drawn before anyone had set foot there. How could mapmakers in the age of sail possess knowledge of lands buried under ice for more than 6,000 years? Scholars suggest they copied from far older sources, perhaps the forbidden maps of a lost seafaring civilization that predated the flood. Section The architects across continents. Patterns emerge everywhere. Step pyramids in Egypt mirror those in Mexico. The alignment of Teotihuacan matches that of the Giza Plateau, both oriented to the stars of Orion's belt. Even megaliths in Cambodia's Angkor Wat trace celestial geometry almost identical to that found in the temples of India and Sumer. Coincidence? Or communication across millennia? Many myths describe sky teachers or serpent builders who brought mathematics, agriculture, and astronomy after the flood. In Mesopotamia, they were the Anunnaki. In Mesoamerica, the Quetzalcoatl. In ancient India, the Apinihara, beings of light who restored balance to a wounded earth. Narrator reflective on perhaps they were not gods at all, but survivors, passing down what little they could remember. Section 2. Measuring the heavens. Every monument from this forgotten tradition points upward. The Great Pyramid encodes the dimensions of the earth. Stonehenge tracks lunar cycles with astonishing accuracy. The temples of Angkor form a star map frozen in stone. To the ancients, heaven and earth were mirrors. By studying one, they believed they could understand the other. Modern astrophysicists still marvel at how accurately these builders mapped solstices and equinoxes using nothing more than sightlines and shadows. Could they have inherited astronomical tables from a civilization that charted the skies long before history began? Section 1. The library beneath the sands. Legends persist of hidden archives, vaults sealed before the deluge. The Hall of Records beneath the Sphinx, the Nakul Library of Burma, the vaults of Thoth said to lie somewhere beneath the desert of Saqqara. In 1997, ground-penetrating radar revealed cavities beneath the Sphinx's left paw. Officially, they remain unexplored, and officially, whispers say ancient texts lie there, written on crystal tablets, accounts of the first time. Could those be the original forbidden maps, records of the world as it once was, and warnings for the world to come? Section 2. Echoes in the Vedas. The Vedas describe the rebuilding of humanity after a great cataclysm. In the Mahabharata, sages speak of cities that shone like the sun and weapons that burned as bright as 1,000 stars. At first glance, myth. Yet archaeological digs in northern India have uncovered layers of vitrified clay, sand melted into glass by heat exceeding 2000°C, natural lightning, or remnants of an ancient technology we no longer understand. Narrator softly. History is not a straight road, it's a spiral. We rise, we fall, we remember, and we forget. Section 3. The Silent Blueprint. Modern engineers analyzing megalithic sites find repeating ratios. Yi, Goi, Yi, Pi, Yi, Phi. The golden proportion. These are universal constants, encoded in art, music, and DNA. Whoever the lost architects were, they didn't just build, they encoded. Their monuments act as tuning forks between Earth and cosmos. Some physicists even suggest that ancient sacred sites form a global energy grid of the ley lines connecting temples, pyramids, and standing stones. Coincidence, or deliberate planetary design? Section 5. The Rediscovery. Today, satellite imaging, LiDAR, and deep-sea scans are revealing what may be thousands of lost sites. Pyramids beneath the Amazon canopy, roads under the Sahara, entire cities off the coast of Cuba. Each discovery pushes civilization further back in time, blurring the boundary between prehistory and history. Narrator odd. Maybe we ray not discovering something new, maybe we ray remembering. Section 2. The warning in the blueprints. Across all myths, one message repeats. Do not forget, each age that rises to high in pride invites its own fall. Perhaps the forbidden maps were not just geographic, but moral, a record of what happens when humanity loses balance with the planet that sustains it. As ice melts again, and seas rise, we are reliving the same pattern the ancients once faced. Maybe their monuments are not relics, but warnings written in stone. The circle closest stand at the edge of any ancient site at dusk, Giza, Machu Picchu, Angkor, or Stonehenge, and feel the silence. It is not emptiness, it is memory. Each stone whispers, we were here before you. Each shadow reminds us, you will be here again. Narrator gentle, final. Perhaps that is the true purpose of these forbidden maps, not to show us where we've been, but to guide us back when we ray lost once more. Soft music swells, a blend of ancient flute and low strings. Closing reflection, the architects of memory, so what remains of the lost architects? Only clues, a fragment of geometry here, a myth there, a map too accurate to explain, enough to remind us that history is vast, and we are its latest experiment. Maybe, one day, when another civilization digs through our ruins, they'll ask the same question we ask of them: how could they have known so much, and forgotten so quickly? Music fades, screen darkens, a single line appears. The earth does not keep secrets, it waits for us to remember.